There are two clocks running in the Middle East tonight, and most of the Western press is only counting one of them. The first clock is in Islamabad. The Iran-United States ceasefire expires Wednesday at midnight, Washington time. The second, Dr. Roxolana, could you walk our viewers through what Iran actually offered back in 2015 at JCPOA and even last year in 2025? And what is it that Washington wants? What is the sticking point?
The key sticking point is that Washington and Tehran are standing for decades on the very same page, actually. They are in the status of the warring states that can hardly find a proper diplomatic language and proper diplomatic vocabulary. And there is a kind of perception, there is a vision, or let's say there is a big picture or illustration of this relationship, is that both sides are hardly willing to use that language and actually elaborate a breach of communication between each other. But at the same time, this kind of stressful position in regard to the nuclear program of Iran that has been actually dwelling in the global affairs agenda for the last 40 years and has been representing an annoying point for Israel and, of course, directly and indirectly to the United States, because we all know that the United States and Israel are very close partners, and no matter how hard they will try to actually deny that kind of partnership, this partnership has been staying really firm since the day of foundation of Israel in 1947.
Right.
That's why I think that those kind of exchange modes of 10 points of negotiation, 15 points of negotiation from American side or from Tehran side, actually it's a kind of manipulation of the same patterns. So it's really hard to see some kind of blank space or the gap that we can jump inside and start actually constructing a new form of narrative.
Right. The Arms Control Association's April report argues that Steve Witkoff was technically unprepared. He misunderstood the Tehran research reactor. He misread Iran's enrichment proposal as bad faith when it was based on needs assessment for planned civilian reactors. I'm reading it from a New York Times report. And it also says that he mistook Iran's insistence on sovereign NPT enrichment rights as deception. If the lead American negotiator could not read the proposal in the right manner, is this a technical failure or is it a political one?
I actually would prefer to expand the context of your question. If it would have been just a political issue of misreading the position of Tehran, that will be half of the problem, half of the diplomatic evil, let's say. But unfortunately, there are three elements in this context: political miscalculation, contextual misreading, and absolutely poor diplomatic equipment from the side of the members of the team of Donald Trump. And this, I think, seriously threatens the general diplomatic position of the United States. Unfortunately, those kind of members of negotiating team from the side of Washington is really not reaching a proper qualification or competence in order to be able to read the front lines of what kind of expectations and what kind of concerns Tehran is trying to deliver to the American side, to the whole world, in which actually they have right for them.
Right. So the natural question that comes to my mind is that if Steve Witkoff is not the right person for this kind of technical negotiations, why didn't they improvise on the Islamabad talks? Like, for instance, just involving J.D. Vance doesn't complete the agenda because the technical team is still missing. Why wouldn't they improvise it?
It's a very correct problem. Because American side, when they started the whole dramatic, let's say, or dramaturgy of this war with Iran or attack Iran, they were absolutely unaware and unprepared. Unfortunately, they didn't have in-depth knowledge about Iran, and such kind of stances as elimination of the whole civilization is absolutely inappropriate. Therefore, we can actually imagine or extrapolate the certain days or 1 month of that kind of intensive war after 30 days, they understood that it was no way to win. But unfortunately, they had to deliver some kind of message for the reason or for the sake of the domestic policy. Otherwise, the Republican Party will have such kind of losses and will bear such kind of risks that it can completely create unacceptable collision between balance and disbalance on American shore.
Right. So walk us through the deal that actually works, in your opinion. We have 4 components here. A nuclear pause with preserved NPT rights, structural sanctions relief that survives the next president, and that's very important. No next president should be able to just walk out of it. Structural sanctions relief that survives the next president as well. Regional architecture with real Lebanon withdrawal and simultaneous Hormuz blockade lift. Is the deal achievable in next 48 hours?
I truly believe that this kind of status quo should be freezed. I would not say should be designed in a way of diplomatic buffer zone. Otherwise, we'll be hanging in that kind of gap for eternity. Because additionally to the problem of non-proliferation of nuclear power, we have gained almost trade, and we have gained extra economic risks for the whole global economy. And we have gained extra partners like in the region. So now we're actually having a very serious, complex situation that can be not sealed down or signed just by one agreement. That will be too easy. There's absolutely no way. But in order to actually to keep both hot-headed parties, like 2 warring states that have been actually that kind of status for years and for decades, so we're not expecting for any miracle. But for Pakistan, we should mention this is a magic hour because the delta waves of the global affairs diplomacy has perfectly matched the beta waves of diplomatic compatibility of Pakistan. That's why I think there are 3 elements that can really serve in order to preserve and to freeze that conflict. Maybe to sign not an agreement, but some kind of
framework
document,
to agree upon.
Framework,
Some framework.
absolutely. That can actually keep the gateway, for further communication. That's important actually to freeze the ceasefire, absolutely, and to preserve the results that have been reached up to this moment.
Right. Do you think the obstacle is the Israeli factor, an overriding factor in all this?
I think we can say that there is a local Israel and there is a global Israel. So the question mark is that which Israel do we mean? Because I've got in a kind of perception, that Israel, since its inception, has been always created conflicts, wars, etc. But it always preferred to create that kind of conflicts through the third party. So it's important to actually to jump over that risky moment that we're experiencing now, actually, and not to weaponize Israel with additional or with a kind of extra diplomatic surplus or attention. I think we should diminish the importance of Israel in order to not to give extra oxygen or extra opportunity or strategic relevance for Israel. That's why I think it's really crucial that Pakistan has reached a certain limitation room, because the diplomatic room is limited just up to Israel is not in the context at the moment. This is really important achievement.
Right. Dr. Roxolana Zigon, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on our show. So here is what we have established in this segment. The deal exists. Iran has offered most of it. The American negotiators have been, at best, unable to read it and at worst, instructed not to close it. The one ingredient that would unlock it, an American phone call to Tel Aviv asking Israeli divisions to leave south of Lebanon, has not been made. This raises the question that defines everything else about this war. Why? Why does Washington does not make that call? Why does a president with 35% approval on Iran policy, with 60% of his own country wanting the war to get over with, the American gas at 405 and the midterms coming, why does that president not pick up the phone? The answer is not in the Washington. The answer is in Tel Aviv. And it is a doctrine that Benjamin Netanyahu has been executing with remarkable strategic consistency for 26 years. A doctrine that is, by almost every measure, currently winning. And it is the reaction of the region, specifically the Gulf, that has begun to quietly realize the American umbrella it has lived under for 50 years may no longer serve it.